Any nervous now?
Check.
Okay, everyone's getting their seats, so I'm just going to welcome everybody before we turn it over to our moderator, Randy. And Maddie here will be timing. The candidates will introduce themselves. I just want to say that we're so appreciative to these volunteers to not only be volunteering to run our town government, but to be here tonight so we can find out everything about them. So I just hope everyone can be really appreciative and respectful, and if you need something, to just come to the back quietly and we'll help anyone get whatever they might need. And more chairs are coming over from the town hall right now. So I think Randy was going to ask the first question, and then people were going to introduce themselves for an entire minute, and then after that there will be 30-second answers to the questions. These questions have all been consolidated from the many questions that were sent in from people in town. So at the end of the 14 questions, there will be a open half an hour where people can raise their hand and ask something if they didn't get all their questions answered. But we did our best to consolidate and get everything covered. Does that cover it? We'll pass, and the microphone will go back and forth, maybe in a different order, so that not everyone has to start, one person doesn't have to start. Okay, here you go. After Randy asks the question, then a minute, yeah.
Good evening all. My name is Randy Oxley, for those of you who don't know me. Just as a matter of full disclosure, back in 1992 I worked in Russia for a year. I have no business dealings there. I don't know any Russians at the moment. Thank you all for coming out. This is not just an American act, this is actually more of a human act. People have a big fire and you get the tribe together, you get your neighbors together, you all gather around and ask questions of these people who are brave enough to offer themselves for the positions so you can gripe at them and bitch about them for the next 2 years. So, it's up to you folks. First question on the floor is, why did you decide to run for office? And does anything in your background prepare you or qualify you for this position?
Thanks, Randy. My name is Michael Box. I'd like to start by thanking Rainbow and Christy and everybody else that put in so much effort to organize this event tonight. I think this is a really fun and unique community experience, and I'm very happy to be part of it and part of this community where we can do this sort of thing. So just quick about me. I've lived in Boulder County for about 18 years now. It's been about 7 here in Jamestown, so I'm a relatively newcomer to the scene. I've been on the Jamestown Fire Department here for 6.5 years or so, and have served the past year on the board as a trustee. I think that's probably the biggest qualifier I have for continuing to serve on the board. The main theme I kind of want to think about tonight, is really bridging the gap between the different generations in Jamestown. We have a lot of older generations, we have a lot of younger generations, and I'd like to see them come together in an effort to build community. Glad to be here tonight.
Hi, my name is Scott Golden, for those of you I don't know. And I'd like to start off as well. Big thanks to Christy and Rainbow and Randy and all of you folks. You folks for showing up. One of the questions that we have to deal with is, how do we get more public engagement in this town? This is a good start right here. So I've been around Jamestown since right after the flood. My partner Michelle, I spent quite a bit of time down here helping her get settled, and then I sold my place west of Fort Collins in the mountains about 2.5 years ago, and then moved here for good. And this place has really endeared itself to my heart. Been a lifelong resident of Colorado, specifically Mountains, Colorado, fairly rural. Coming to Jamestown is kind of like coming to a big town, so it's fun. When I hear the county road crew go by, and another big thanks to Kenny, thank you, that was fast.
The mic up here.
Sorry. To Kenny, Cowboy, and Craig for plowing the roads out here in Thunderston. Anyway, the reason I want to run is I was approached by several folks here in the town to possibly run for the town board, and it's community involvement. To me, it's all about community getting engaged. So.
Yay!
Alrighty. My name is Chad Drosty, Chad Zygo, depending on who you ask. Why I decided to run is this will be my 5th term on the town board. I am dedicated to finishing out what we started, you know, getting through to the end, which is right here somewhere. What qualifies me is just that. I've been committed to this since the get-go. If there was a badge for best attendance, I think I would get it, because I show up to all the meetings no matter what. You know, I try to really take seriously what I do. I've lived in Jamestown since 2000. I worked in this building for 9 years of my life. I lived upstairs there for 3 years. You know, I'm committed to my community. I want to see what we can do to make it better up here.
I decided to run basically for the same reasons as Chad, which is to finish up with the current recovery efforts. I should say that I was on the board in the late 80s when the water treatment plant and the Lower Main Street Bridge were designed. And when I returned to town as a retiree, in case you couldn't guess, I want to put the skills that I'd acquired in my years as an administrator in large county public health departments, which were politics, budgets, program development, and management, to use something for the town.
Please speak into the mic.
Yes.
Real close.
Real close. Now that I'm talking really loud, I too, from the older generation to the older generation, I also want to extend my thanks to Bo, to Christy, and everyone else who was involved in putting it together, and everyone who's taken the time to show up. Thank you.
If you just don't put your hand on the board part, just keep it
Yeah,
on
the
the
board.
Gotcha. Hello, everybody. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name is Joe Brancato. Some of you may know me as Cousin Joe, as I'm often here at the restaurant that we're sitting in. I moved to Colorado in 2010 from Chicago. Finished up school in northeastern Illinois, and I have a bachelor's degree in politics, which I think kind of helps me with public service qualifications. I just love this town. I have a dedication towards everybody here, and I'm very much involved in wanting to get to know more of the day-to-day workings of town government, and I believe strongly in public service. In terms of my strong suits and qualifications for this, I work here at the Merc. I know almost everybody in this room right now. I'm definitely somebody that you can approach and talk to about anything. If you have questions, problems, I'm willing to sit and listen to you. I look forward to getting to know some of you more that I don't know that well. And very engageable. If you need anything, I have questions, just talk to me. And I'd also like to thank everybody for hosting the event and everything tonight. Maddie, Randy, Rainbow, and Adam, thank you all so much.
I'd also like to thank everybody, especially Rainbow and Adam, and also Maddie for being the person who has to cut us off. That's probably the hardest job here tonight. I've been politically and democratically motivated since I was a little kid. I staged my first sit-in in the 6th grade.
over the hot button issue for 10-year-olds throughout time, meritocracy and the human resources hiring of gym teachers. I learned a lot from that, actually, probably more than any other event as an adult, about how democracy works and the pros and cons, and especially collateral damage. You think you're doing one thing and other things happen. Since then, I've done a lot of different things, but most recently, I started out with the long-term recovery planning process, mainly because some of the old-timers came to me and said, will you please go do this? We don't want to do it. We're afraid we're going to get sidewalks. And at the time I thought, no, we're not. Nobody wants sidewalks. And what I learned from that whole process was somebody wants, whatever you think everybody wants, there's someone who doesn't want it. So throughout that process, we eventually decided that we didn't get what we wanted from consultants. I ended up sort of doing the whole thing, leading that with a huge group of the community and really learning the idea of resilience is more than just the infrastructure. As a board member, as a Roads and Bridges, there's more to get to later, but basically I want to continue that work, and I really want to push our focus towards all the elements of resilience and community building besides the infrastructure.
I'm going to pass on to Heather. Thanks, Heather.
Hi, my name is Colleen. I'm playing the role of Heather tonight, who's in Singapore. I'm fairly new to the town board and initially joined to fill a vacancy midterm. I felt it was time to participate and gain a better understanding of the inner workings of our town. If I wish to see any change in the world, I need to start at home. We're fortunate to have our own town board, and I feel it's important to be involved. I have been a part of the changing fabric of this town for just over 20 years and have had the pleasure of knowing many people in town from working at the Merc in my early days and through my work as a hairstylist. My intention on the board is to be a reflection of the community and to encourage a better understanding and discourse of how and why the town operates and makes decisions.
There are actually 20 questions. We decided between us that we would go on one after the other, so you'd be able to compare the mayoral candidates with the ones for trustees. So first of all, we got to thank Christy and Rainbow for their work and Sal for working on the camera stuff, as well as Maddie and Randy. So all these people, but you also have to thank yourself, because we have really good turnout. The other thing I would like to say is that, does anybody ever remember there being an election for mayor? No, I've been here for 28 years. I've been on the board for 24 of those years. I've been a mayor from 2002 to 2010, and usually it's a job where you try to find somebody to take your place if you want to get out of it, otherwise there's nobody else to do it. But you know, this is like, to me, this is the best thing that's happened to Jamestown since I've been here, because now people will really have an opportunity to have a choice. I'm getting waved at here, but I'll be back in a little bit.
You guys are going to hate me by the end of this.
We hate you already.
I love you, man. You wave your flags about.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julie Constantine. I'm running for mayor. I have a little unconventional intro, since the mayors also have a second intro in the mayor round questions. But I have been around. I know most of you in this room, and I'm going to shake things up a little bit. And there we go. Whenever you call me, I'll be there. Whenever you want me, I'll be there. Even if I have to call, I'll be there. I'll be around. Just call me on the phone. I'll be there. I'll never leave you alone. I'll be I'll be around. I'll be jumping and skipping. I'll be there. I'll be ripping it up. I'll be there. I'll be calling out your name so I know I'll be around.
Heard enough.
Sure, I'll start. I always love following a disco act. I guess what we're on to
30 seconds now for these questions.
Okay.
Randy, you asked the question.
Okay.
Nice and loud, please.
Question. What do you think is the biggest or the main challenges facing Jamestown, and what would you do to solve them?
I think that was also that. So combined with this one, that was also an introduction. No, he ran. Okay.
All right. Okay, we got that clarified. Well, I think our biggest challenges, because it's not about me. This is our community. It's ours. I know you're electing us to, represent you, but I'm taking by the involvement, or seeing everybody here, that it's our community. So our challenges, as I see them, are to get through the rebuild and to get past where we're getting audited. And to me, that's our goal, and that's what we should be working towards. Okay, there you go.
And before you read the question, I'm going to give some of my answers will probably be 10 to 15 seconds because I have one question, but there's no way I can answer it in time. So
Yeah, 30 seconds is pretty fast. Yeah.
No, this is for them. I'll talk loud for you all.
Sounds like collusion.
Do you read it again, or I just answer it already? Okay.
If anyone doesn't know the question,
Main challenges are complete the recovery in a way that minimizes the town's financial liabilities. And after that, how the town can continue to survive in an ever more costly and complex environment. There's no direct answer about what I would do individually to solve the above. However, I'd like to use my skills and experience to help the board make the best possible decisions as the specific issues arise.
Drop the mic.
I think that the biggest issues that are facing Jamestown are just like everybody else has said so far, obviously seeing through the rebuild and everything, but one of the other things too is to combat the ever-rising cost of living in general, whether it be tackling that through trying to find state and federal grant money for affordable housing. I'd really like to try to see if we can find ways to find money to try to encourage people to produce their own energy, solar panels, wind turbines, things like that. If we can find federal and state funding to help with that. And I'd also like to encourage and increase local food productions. That's also a way to be able to keep cost of living down.
Like everyone, obviously, fiscally surviving the recovery is one of the most important things. I think it's also though important to make sure that we survive that in such a way that it matters. So the housing costs are a huge part of that. It's great to come out of this out of debt, but if half the people who lived here through it can't continue to live here, then we've sort of lost some of the way. So there's another question on housing where we can get into that later. Fiscal help besides just the recovery. We have a lot of costs that are continually rising outside of that. And then just the general idea of that, building that resilience outside of just the infrastructure stuff. And there are more, there's just a lot of different ways you can go about that. Can't really go into it in 30 seconds. So, who wants to go next?
Pass on to Heather.
Thanks for that introduction. I think the biggest opportunity is wrapping up the flood recovery physically and financially. Tara has been most instrumental in this process. We're very fortunate that she's willing voluntarily to follow us through the final phases of flood recovery. She has historical understanding and relations that are invaluable to seeing our recovery come to an end. I feel enormous gratitude for what she has already accomplished and feel it is of utmost importance to support her as we bring the recovery to a close.
Okay, I agree with it.
We got a couple board members left too.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
If you want to keep that format. We had a number of issues before the flood that were facing the town, and I think a lot of those issues, things like our failing water plant and some problems with the roads, have all been kind of made irrelevant. We're living in a new world of new issues in a post-flood world. And to make it sweet and short, really following through on the flood recovery process is the main issue that we have to do as a town. Like Jen said, in order to maintain our fiscal health going forward. So I think that's a really important thing. There's other disasters we can prepare for, but I think to make it one quick answer, it's to complete the flood recovery process with the team we have.
So I'm taking a little different tact in that moving past the flood recovery. We're doing great work, and that's going to be wrapped up. But my primary concern, and this comes from being a resource specialist in forestry, is our future disasters and learning to adapt in the environment that we're at and become much more resilient to that. Way to handle that would be initialize a Firewise type program that I'd really like to get involved in. Second, we need to really have a conversation with everybody here and more and get us all in one room to talk about what we want Jamestown to look like with the pressure and the growth from Boulder right next door.
Well, most of my answers have already been said. I agree that flood recovery is very important. I also agree with Scott that one of our biggest challenges is fire mitigation, especially on the south side, and how to reach those areas that we've lost since Ward Street is not available anymore. And I know that Scott and Tara and the county and the Forest Service have already started these conversations. But I would say fire mitigation and then debris that's still left up Ward Road that may still, potentially be a threat through time.
I thought you were going to dance. All right, I agree with Heather. I think that the most important thing is the recovery and getting reimbursed properly for the work that we have done and being able to pay back the state and the county who so graciously advanced us money so that we'd be able to pay our contractors. So I'm looking forward to a very construction-free 2019. Going up and down the road, I'm going to very quickly here and said I'd like to finish those projects, and I do endorse the plan, the resolution to control, have a recovery manager, and that would be Tara. Thanks.
Okay, the next go-round question is, do you believe that Jamestown residents should be more involved in
Number three.
Sorry, Randy, what about number 3? Okay. If this answer is different than question number 2, and I guess that answer is one of the biggest challenges, what is your biggest goal to accomplish?
All right, so wildfire resiliency to me, and I guess that just comes from doing what I do. But I'd really like to see some type of Firewise symposium in town. I'd really like to see some type of voluntary audit process. Because despite what a lot of you folks may think, as far as a flaming front coming down the hill, there are a lot of other issues. As a matter of fact, 50% of the homes are lost to embers from the fire. So an ember shower washing over this town is a pretty terrifying thing. So I'd like to get that going as soon as possible and have the connections and friends of mine and co-workers and such that we can get some agencies in here and probably attract some money as well.
All right. I've had the fortune of going to this wonderful thing that the Colorado Municipal League throws for new trustees and whatever. And one of the first things they tell you is that if you have any personal goals, you abandon them at the door. Because in a small town, politics, personal goals are not, they're a big hole in your blanket of immunity. So in answering that, I think our goal, once again, as a community, should be to get back to what we want Jamestown to be. So.
Okay. In addition to the issues that I already mentioned, I would hope that by the end of my term to have in place a plan that ensures the continued viability of our water system. I should note that if re-elected, this will be my final term as boardman. Cheer.
Wow. I don't know if you said that loud enough for recording.
One of the things that I've kind of failed to mention when I did my introduction is that I'm a big gardener, and one thing that I think one way that you can kind of combat the ever rising cost of living is to produce local food and to focus on community sustainability from an agricultural standpoint. I'd really like to try to grow the community garden more than it is right now, because obviously this will be our first year and I'm really looking forward to that. But one thing I'd also like to try to talk about, and I've talked to Michael Box about this a little bit as well, is I'd like to try to get a community greenhouse going that would be run year-round, where we could be producing locally produced food in the winter. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to try to go with some of the specifics of what to do about the last question. For the housing, Joe covered a lot, the idea of looking at the different elements. So food is part of that. Water rates, I think, here are a big part of housing costs for people. I think we have an opportunity to really look at, can we do our subsidies for low income better, where where it's more helpful to the people who really need it. So I'd really like to look into that. I've actually done the math, and we can change that and improve that. And then on mitigation issues, FEMA offers 1 million classes for free. They have online classes, they have classes in Denver, and they have classes at their own school in Maryland. I've taken a bunch of those, and some of those are related to programs they have that you can use for mitigation outside of being in a disaster. So I plan to continue going to those classes and doing more so that we can get that mitigation work done. And we're not on this timeline of it has to be related to the disaster, because there are programs out there that will let you do that. So.
I understand that Heather did not want to answer this question. Michael?
Sure. So further issues to be covered. I think a lot of them have been brought up here. Planning for further disaster relief, fire mitigation. We had a pretty extensive stormwater management plan commissioned, and we're looking for funding for that right now. And I think there's a lot of fun things, like Joe up here too, expanding community gardens, building greenhouses. That's stuff that people can really get behind. And I think that's something that can stimulate community engagement in a fun way that's really going to help the community in the long term.
Thank you for that.
Okay. It looks like we're going to have a board that's interested in resiliency and emergency preparedness. And that's good, because I have, sorry, you can't read it on my glasses. I have some ideas about that too, and that happened to be on my list. I want to update our emergency preparedness plans, including community-wide emergency communication plans, coordinate resilience efforts with the county, Intermountain Alliance, support our floodplain administrator, have neighbor-to-neighbor help teams, capital improvement fund for the fire department and EMT, building and land use ordinances that require pre-build hazard mitigation. I'll do that.
I love all these answers. As I looked at this question as mayor, what is my biggest challenge? And for me, I came up with, I really want to encourage, facilitate, and effectively communicate with all of the town's residents to empower and enable more participation and more community opportunity for outreach and growth within this community, within this governing board.
You get to go next turn.
Now I guess we're ready for number 4. Do you believe that Jamestown residents should be more involved in the town government? And if so, what do you plan to do to encourage greater citizen awareness and involvement in the town government?
Yes. And basically try and get the information about what's going on more accessible to town members, and also develop and provide opportunities for meaningful engagement, such as working on one of the town's standing committees, like roads, water, and JVFD.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm of the thought process that, of course, yes, everybody should be more political because everything that happens around you is, to some extent, political. But, of course, this is America, and you do have the choice to choose your level of engagement. I would encourage everybody to be more political, come to the meetings, do whatever you can. I'm always open if anybody has any questions about anything. But there are a lot of people that just kind of move to the mountains that don't want to deal with politics, and especially politics in a small town. And if they don't want to, they're free to do that as well. But yes, by all means, please be political though.
I agree with Joe. I wish people were political all the time, but I also agree that, you know, if people don't want to, they don't have to. So our job is kind of to make it appealing to be engaged. And one of the things we used to do is have an email list and that automatically gets agendas and minutes. We can start annotating the agendas so that they don't read like gibberish and people actually know what they're about when they get them. We can do our minutes in a way that's a little more detailed that gives people information. We can do all this very easily by utilizing our website so it automatically happens. Christy uploads it to the website, it goes out to the email list. Engaging more with the school, they already do a lot of really cool things. When I was a kid, we had a school, kids were representatives to the school on the town board, so we could do something like that. Anything that we do that makes it more fun and more engaging will encourage people to make the choice to be more engaged.
Yes, as I said earlier, we're lucky to have our own town board. It will only continue if we have new people getting involved. Our town will be what we make it. I hear people's opinions frequently outside of board meetings. I know it doesn't sound like the most exciting Monday night, but your voice will be heard more effectively at a board meeting, and at least you may gain an understanding or an answer.
Can you repeat that question?
Do you believe that Jamestown residents should be more involved in town government? And if so, what would you plan to do to encourage greater citizen awareness and involvement in the town government?
Well, I'm not the kind of person that's going to tell people what they should and shouldn't be doing. So if you want to be involved in town government, I think that's wonderful. And if you don't, that's your decision too. I do think it's important right now as a community for us to begin to transition knowledge from older generations into the newer generation right now. And, you know, I'm talking about people my age, you know, that are young families, that sort of thing. And I think we can do this sort of transition through facilitating communication through all sorts of different social groups, small social groups, larger social groups that exist here in town. I think that's a strength that I would be happy to bring to the board and to the community. And I hope that continues to happen, because I think that's going to be very important for us as a community.
Do you believe that Jamestown residents should be more involved in town government? Yes, but as somebody that shows up to a lot of the board meetings, it's pretty lonely in there. There's about 3 or 4 of us, I would say, that regularly attend those meetings. So we strongly encourage more people to do so. That being said, town business isn't of interest to everybody, but I would propose that on some of the more contentious issues or things of great import, that we have more of a hearing type format. And then that's basically the chance for the town to explain, or the experts we have there to explain what's in front of us, and let you folks provide some input on that as well.
All right. I've once suggested punch and pie. I don't know if that would get more people to come to the board meetings. Cattle prods. Those get people to move. But cake, punch and pie. There we go. You know, as somebody who goes to all the board meetings, really all it takes is being in that building over there at 7 o'clock, and you will be perfectly involved in your town government. There's open forum, so you can speak your mind. There's, you know, ways to access the agenda to where you ask to be on the agenda. Just, you know, I think what it requires, honestly, is caring. And I hope that's what I'm seeing here, is people caring. Because for a long time, people really didn't care what went on in that building. And you should, you know, this is special. This size of democracy is special. This is what our forebears, this is what they envisioned, you know, because this is the size that they were. So, you know, hopefully people see, you know, it's not hard to do this. 12 signatures on a piece of paper. You have to be a registered voter in Jamestown, and you have to live here. And, you know, stay involved, get yourself involved.
So for those of you who know me, this may be redundant, and those that don't, might want to know about me that I'm innately optimistic. So I look at everyone's participation as a good thing. I'm one of those people that I want you to participate during the flood recovery and the community groups that were created. I was so for that because primarily of the community involvement. But I also recognize that there is issues with, are people getting information on time? Do they really know what's going on? I would love to come up with I've thought of ideas, but I would love to come to make those ideas happen of roundtable board meetings and getting information out early and having more community involvement. So ultimately, yes, I think more participation is great.
I have a lot more than 30 seconds on this, so if somebody wants to ask me a question about this during the Q&A, please ask me. But I'm going to try to hit the highlights on this. I think we have more volunteerism than ever. We have all kinds of committees that people have been running out of time already. I just got to hit the. Well, he's just fiddling with it. Okay, well, I just want to hit the high spots here. I would develop a volunteer coordination strategy that includes a recognition program for volunteers. I would initiate an independent community service committee to go along with the other 3 or 4 committees that we already have so many people who are active on. I would go back to, I want to make a return the town hall to the community, restructure the clerk's office for more workspaces. And I would restore the spring cleanup in 2018. It might be a fall cleanup. We'd have a spring cleanup. And let me just see.
No begging, Tanner, no begging.
Fund the community garden, fund the stewardship open space program, and provide funding to hang Tom Maloney's historic art collection in public buildings.
Let Heather start with the next question.
I think Joe's turn.
Maddie can just hit this if you go past 30.
What if you wave it and then ding at 45?
Joe.
Okay. It's a goal of many it's a goal of many in town to get back to normal. What do you think means that we are back to normal? Are we already there? How can you help us get back to normal? And when can the town hall return to normal? Meaning that the clerk is back in the office and the temporary office is removed.
Well, first of all, I'm not really quite sure what it means to be normal. I'm going to throw that one out there right now. And I kind of hate the idea of going back to normal because time moves forward. I don't think it's right of us to try to live in the past. We had the flood hit us, and we have a lot of physical and emotional scars, but it's also left us with an opportunity for a great rebuild. There's a lot of open space that we have to work with. There are things we can do. There are projects we can take on. So yeah, we need to embrace the future. We need to move forward and modernize as much as a town of 300 people in the mountains can do.
Yeah, I think normal is really individual. Different people feel normal.
Sorry.
Wait, what? You start over. I'm going to keep going.
You're doing great.
Yeah, there's different, you can't really say there's one collective normal, and for each individual it's going to be different. I remember, and it happens in stages. There was a time where I was like, oh, we're getting back to normal because I just had a political argument with someone. We didn't do that for a while. So I think that really the idea of normal, it isn't about looking to the past and saying we want things to return to this exact way. It's for us as a community to decide what are we happy with, what are we not happy with, what do we do about the things we're not happy with, how do we make sure the things we're happy with continue, what are we missing, how do we get it back, what do we have that we didn't want, how do we get rid of it. So there's really it's not a stagnant thing, it changes over time, and that's it.
I have experienced some subtle and not so subtle changes in town over the years. Fire, flood, people moving in and out, babies, deaths. It was never normal and never the same for long. And I think that resiliency and ability to adjust while maintaining the quirkiness, humility, and love for our beautiful surroundings is our normal, and it never left.
Well, I guess at some point something's going to happen.
Yeah, we could go into the existential meaning of normal. My normal, your normal, that sort of thing. But we talk about like the new normal, old normal. I mean, old normal's gone. Maybe we'll find a new normal. I don't think we're there yet. I think completing the flood recovery process is the best way to get to some semblance of a normal. And if what the flood recovery team is telling us is accurate, we should be there by the end of this year. So yeah, let's shoot for that.
Yeah, normal after the flood, I would say it's more the new normal, what Michael just alluded to. Because we're always changing, things are always changing, there's going to be something come along, they'll be that normal. But referred to earlier, the non-neglected nature of this community, that's still pretty normal for us, and I hope it will continue. As far as the town hall, administering these grants and these contracts, it all takes time, and I know it's very painful, and as a community center, that's very important to a lot of folks, but you have to realize there's a lot of work that still needs to have to go on, and the folks there still need space. So.
frankly, we're seeing the new normal now, right? Like we're seeing the fact that people actually want to get involved in this, that it's changed, that we've gone through change together and we keep wanting to work towards improving upon change. And I mean, nothing's never the same forever. I mean, you know, it's just the way it works. As far as the town hall, you know, the 3 people that are working in that cubicle, they are more important than you can ever possibly imagine possible. With the 4th person not really there as much as she used to be. So as far as I'm concerned, until they're done with what they're doing, that's what they're doing, you know, and we'll have plenty of time when they're gone to dance right where they're doing what they're doing. So, you know, just stick with it and let's just get through it. Dankeschön, Colin, Dankeschön. Oh, sorry, man.
You blended in with my Dr. Pepper. I didn't see it.
Well, since I am Dr. Vic, that's okay. I'm going to take this question narrowly as it was written. Back to normal to mean all flood-related construction is completed, which should be December 2018, and the town hall is back to pre-flood conditions. Realistically, not until construction contracts are closed out with county, state, and feds, and that's 2020, folks. So.
Joe.
Oh,
You got to do Mayor, sir.
Okay, here's my turn now.
it is. You're number 5.
Okay, all right. I think the new normal will be a combination of the old normal and something else because we have new infrastructure. I think that we could, one is a restoration of the old things, and we're doing some of that now with recycling and zero waste. Restore the cleanup days, and I think we can do that this year, if not next. Encourage removal of trash, junk, construction debris from private and public property, and continue our annual practice of treating unimproved road dust control. The new, we will have to support a comprehensive sustainability program. We have to maintain our new infrastructure. The buyout property should not look like vacant lots. We've already told you about Tom Maloney's art collection, and we will encourage private ownership, flowers planting, and make the town look nice. Thank you.
For me, like most people on this board, I asked, well, what is normal? And it made me think of what was normal pre-flood. And I found that like normal, to me, was a strong sense of community. I think it's what drew a lot of us to this community, was a strong, independent community. And during the flood, we had personal issues that everybody individually was dealing with. We had a ton of outside help that was totally abnormal. And I think for us to get back to normal, it's strengthening back that community, responsibility, and resiliency with one another and this town.
As a follow-up to the last question, are you comfortable working with contractors involved in what's left for the flood recovery and the temporary workers in the town hall? Is your goal to close that out and to end these projects?
In my year as a board member on the Roads and Bridges Committee, that happened right around the time Tara was going back to work full-time, so I actually already did that. Pretty close to full-time. I was there for all of that for that year, so I'm perfectly comfortable with that, and I actually think it's really important that the more people are comfortable and have some understanding of the processes of all the recovery stuff, the better, because we will have a disaster another time, and there's no better time to learn how to do that stuff than in the disaster you're in, so you're ready for the next one. So yes, I'm comfortable with that, and I think the more people that are comfortable with it, the better. I may be the only person who's actually read the entire Stafford Act, which is the legislative device for FEMA, so I feel pretty comfortable, yeah.
I haven't had much direct contact with the contractors, but I'm so thankful that we have had their help and dedication throughout the flood recovery. Come to the board meetings or see last meeting minutes on the town website for updates on flood recovery and specific project closeouts which have been discussed every single meeting.
Yeah, short answer, yes. I feel confident I can manage the relationships, my part in those relationships with our contractors and engineers. I'm currently aware of all the projects that we are engaged in and contracted to right now. And I think that shouldn't be a problem at all going forward. So I'm really looking forward to closing out most of those projects as well.
So am I comfortable working with contractors and flood recovery? Absolutely. Working with the county, that's a good majority of what I do is administer FEMA grants and contracts. So there's no problem with that at all. That's my day job. And the second part of that, do I get along with town staff and temporary workers? Yes, there's no problem getting along with town staff. And is your goal to close out 10 of these projects? Of course it is. As efficiently as possible without sacrificing quality or violating any terms of our grants or contract agreements.
Wow. Yeah, of course. I'm all into closing out everything, getting everything done. You know, I've talked to the town staff quite a bit. Every once in a while, I, reward them with fixing their town hall with various things that break down. So, as far as contractors, yeah, I wouldn't be sitting up here if I didn't think I could talk to people directly or take some kind of responsibility for something. So, yes.
Yeah, I'm very comfortable working with contractors, the town engineer, and the contractor's fiscal staff. I was the general contractor for the town square project, and certainly the goal is to close out projects in the most fiscally responsible manner.
I can't really say that I feel like I have anything new to add here. Yes, I am definitely comfortable working with all the contractors and everybody that we're dealing with. And what was the second half of the question there again, Randy?
Temporary workers in town hall.
I'm quite familiar with all the temporary workers in the town hall. I definitely believe that I have the ability to engage all of them, work with them. And yes, I obviously would also like to see everything finished out. The flood recovery project was. But just like everybody else before me has said, in a fiscally responsible way and in a timely fashion. Thank you.
So for me, am I comfortable working with contractors? Yeah, I actually became a general contractor when we were rebuilding our house, so I had to learn that whole aspect of contracting. But as far as the town employees and the flood recovery program, I've worked with these people, not necessarily directly, but as a volunteer. I have a very good relationship with the flood recovery team. Is it my goal to close it out? Of course, we want all these projects to be closed out and as soon as possible, but my personal goal is to be a facilitator for the flood recovery team's success. And how do I do that most effectively? That's my goal.
I have a couple of things. One, I think that the new board will have a good structured relationship with the recovery team, and that will be a process that will be an atmosphere of respect and cooperation. I also feel like, I know the recovery team well enough that these are very knowledgeable and dedicated people. I respect the work that they're doing, and I'd like to see them complete it. And it will be my job to make sure that they have the resources that they need to finish what they need to be done.
I think Heather gets the first.
Heather gets to start off this round.
Heather did not answer this question.
Oh, wow. There you go.
I'll answer for Heather.
Number
It should be a
7.
new one, right? It should be
Yes. Now we're off. On to questions on housing. What will you do to try to keep Jamestown's housing more affordable for young families and for people starting out?
Okay, look. So I have a younger single parent that lives here in town. So I am very much concerned about this issue. I don't currently own a house here. I'd love to someday. And I want to not have to spend $1 million to buy one. So yes, keeping housing prices low, keeping housing prices affordable is very important to me. I think there's things we can do. We can look at increasing access to ADUs or potentially subdividing properties on like a case-by-case basis. Those are things I'm open to looking at, but this is an issue that I'm very much is very much important to me. So yes.
Yeah, we have a real problem here, and that we're not a problem, it's what makes us great, but we're limited in how far we can grow, how big we can get. Conversations about ADUs, that may be one possibility, you know, some duplexes, but it's going to be tough, and it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that we really need to start the conversation about what we want Jamestown to be, what we want it to look like, because the pressure's coming. And as much as we like to say, well, let's just keep housing prices down, you know what? If you're a private landowner and somebody offers you another $100,000 for your place, you're probably going to take it. So we need to figure out that increasing pressure. I see it skyrocketing. I've lived in this state pretty much my entire life, and I've seen a lot of other towns go that way where something gets scraped off and trophy home goes up. We'd rather not see that, so let's start talking.
Well, I echo what Michael said. You know, I've been a renter my whole life up here, and you know, affordable housing is something that all of us want. I think some of the challenges might be looking into other ways to make housing affordable. Like, it's not just your mortgage payment or your rent. You know, it's your utilities. It's everything. So there's other ways to try to tackle this, hopefully. Because, you know, property rights are property rights. They're going to be what they're going to be. We don't get to dictate those. So, yeah.
You have to go without your notes. Scary.
Okay, so without my notes, encourage ADUs, finish up the subdivision ordinance that will potentially allow for a few more building sites, and explore the possibility of an ordinance that would prohibit scrapes and replacing small houses with mega mansions.
So actually, this is obviously a topic that concerns me quite a bit as a renter, because I would also, like Michael said, be able to afford a house here in Boulder, Colorado, or Boulder County, Colorado at some point in time. There are a couple of, I've learned recently about a couple of local mountain task forces that have been assembled to try to combat this issue. There's the Peak Housing and Human Services Task Force. They meet on the third Wednesday of every month in the morning. I can attend that meeting. There's also the Intermountain Alliance, and they hold meetings on the fourth Thursday of every month in the morning, and I can attend that meeting as well. I don't lead that exciting of a life. I have time to do these things. And I will.
I, like Joe, have no other life, so I can go to those meetings with him, and even more. I think people have mostly answered this, so just to repeat, there's the elements that go into your housing costs beside the housing, your energy, your water. We have some ways we can address that. I think we do have a way to control how high our housing prices go, which is what Vic talked about, which is limiting what people can do on properties they buy. The problem with that in this town is that people also, we're a town that does not like to restrict what people can do on their private property. So I think that's a conversation we really need to have, because while it could do a lot of good as far as keeping prices from rising, it could also really alter our character if we start saying you can do this and you can't do this on your property. So that's one, and I think we also maybe could look at most of our building codes are done in conjunction with Boulder County. A lot of those, and including remodeling and repairing your house, are very restrictive. They don't necessarily make a lot of sense for Jamestown, and they're very expensive to do. So we might want to take a look at, are there any of those things that are making our housing more expensive because we have to follow these rules? And also just making sure we're agile enough. There's a lot of new technology around housing, and a lot of it's based on making things a lot less expensive. So we need to be prepared in terms of our own legislation and codes to be able to be agile and adopt those things. Okay, sorry.
Is there any way we can turn the beeping off?
No.
Seriously?
Because that's how they know that it's time to stop.
It's terrible though, isn't it? Can you wave your hand? Stop when it beeps.
Freedom of speech!
Maddie will just have to start tackling us, that's all there is to it. I'm ready.
So, I'll begin now, trustee. Okay, I have a couple of things. One of the things about Jamestown really does have to decide what they want to do. There's a 1984 growth ordinance that says that all of the new housing in Jamestown will be single-family dwellings. Now, it will be more expensive. If you live somewhere else, there are things like mobile home parks, which we do not have here, that we do not permit. And there also are things like multi-family dwellings, which we don't permit. So I think it's come to the point where we need to find out whether or not the community still wants these single-family home values. And what I would do is I would have a survey and try to find out from the people who live here what they would prefer. And then hopefully our board would then follow what the majority wants. We've done it for other things, well, this would be good.
So you guys have heard 8 people already, but so one thing, this is not a singular topic. I mean, there are many communities dealing with this problem right now. We're not alone in this issue. I want to give a shout out to LUHOC, the Land Use Housing, Land Use Housing and Advisory Committee. Thank you. Because they have been working on this topic specifically for a long time now, and they've gone through discussions and come up with possible solutions and topics. But I want to give a shout out to them, because it's citizens like that who take a stand to sit down and talk about these really difficult topics, and I appreciate that.
Next question, do you think that all town public buildings and spaces should be brought up to the same aesthetic standards and not to devalue a citizen's private property value?
This question strikes me as a little bit of funny. Are they saying that the town hall's ghetto? I don't think town hall's ghetto.
I didn't write the question.
Anyway, of course, you know, all town buildings, infrastructure should basically represent the community that they're in. From the vacant land standpoint, the open spaces that have been recently acquired through the flood buyout program absolutely we need to be taking care of those. And I've already been working with Vic and Blue Hawk and SAG, Stewardship Advisory Group, on developing a draft management plan template for those properties, so we actually have something to fall back and something to guide us in the future.
Yeah, of course, we all, of course, we make everything, aesthetically appealing. I think a lot of it too, as as somebody who is, takes care of the town hall and I take care of the cemetery, people actually telling me stuff is, needs to be cleaned up really helps out immensely because I don't know everything. So, we'll do what we can do, of course.
Could you read the last half of that question, please?
Read the whole thing.
Do you think that all town public buildings and spaces should be brought up to the same aesthetic standards and not to devalue a citizen's private property value?
So I'm puzzled by this question because in general, the town's buildings, the town hall, the fire hall, the community barn, and spaces like the town square and Elysian Park, with the possible exception of the vault toilets, are assets which enhance property values in Jamestown.
Yeah, just kind of like as Vic said, that all those things do already bring our town value up. But yes, we do need to keep the aesthetic appearance of everything up in town. We represent Jamestown. We want to represent you well. That's about all.
So I think I might have misinterpreted this question because someone had asked me once before a long time ago about the idea of all of our public properties should be in the same style, basically. And so when I heard this question, I thought that's what it was asking. Should all of them be done in exactly the same style? And I thought, well, no, it kind of should be what we all decide it should be. Other than that, yeah, I think that most of our properties are pretty well maintained. Do they all need to be done Art Deco style? No. So I think, yeah, the obvious answer is yes. I think there could be questions about the buyout properties and how those are going to be done, and that's a much longer than 30-second conversation.
Heather kept this short and sweet. Rural and quirky is my leaning, but I do like tidy.
I'm sure whoever submitted this question has a very specific property in mind or situation, and I'd love to talk about it. And that's really my question: is like, what are we talking about here? Because I think this has to be evaluated on a property-specific basis. I really can't make a comment or opinion about town properties. Otherwise, our fire hall looks a lot better than it used to. Get some fire hall fans in the house. So yeah, I mean, yeah, of course we want to have this town looking proper. Sort of proper.
Proper in the feral,
So I was also confused about this question because I didn't know what specific building they were talking about or space they were talking about. And then I looked outside our windows and I saw the Old Town water pump house. And I said, yeah, actually, that one could be brought up to aesthetic standards. But of course, I don't think anyone wants to choose to denigrate anyone's private property. So yes.
I'd be willing to bet that this question is about the water plant. But that's okay, because there are things that form follows function, and that's what the water plant was built to. The other thing that I would say is that we definitely want to maintain our infrastructure. We want to take care of the new things that we have, and that's very important. And we want to make sure that everything looks nice. And even the water plant could probably be spruced up a little bit. I'll be back.
It all comes back.
Okay, are you a candidate that is interested in developing growth or keeping Jamestown rural and quirky?
All right, well this question is pretty easy. I've seen 3 different surveys, I do believe, that have shown me that Jamestown is a zero growth area from 1920 to now. So, you know, I think all of us are into, you know, keeping what we have. I mean, the true question about this is, you know, the only thing growth helps you with is paying the bills. So, you know, like if that's not an option for us to pay the bills, then we're going to have to find a way to pay those bills.
Yeah, I want Jamestown to continue to be rural, quirky, and affordable. That's why Kathleen and I moved here in 1983 and kept our house despite leaving for years because of jobs, so we could return upon retiring, which we did in 2008. Unfortunately, as a town, we have no control on increasing property values in Boulder County. I'm certainly not thrilled each year when I get my new assessment and increased taxes.
As Chad already kind of pointed out, we're a town of 300 people. There are only so many buildable lots. There's really not too much in terms of growth that we can, in terms of financial growth or anything, but that doesn't mean we can't grow as a community though. And there are definitely, like I said before, the flood has given us a lot of opportunities to be able to build on existing, you know, just kind of rebuild infrastructure and to kind of shape out the future of Jamestown for everybody here. I look forward to being a part of that. Thank you.
I'm certainly in favor of, you know, no to limited growth, but or no growth. But when we try to mesh that in with talking about our affordable housing problem, there's no way to get more new, smaller affordable housing without some growth. I think that's a conversation we need to have seriously with the entire community about. Are we willing to do that? And then we really need to be careful before we do anything to very precisely state what the limits of that are. If we want to say we're going to allow 3 homes to become duplexes, and now we can have, you know, 3 more families will have some affordable living, we could do that. But I think it's really important before we start saying things like we're going to zone for it's okay to have duplexes, it's okay to have ADUs, is to be clear on how we're going to limit that, what the parameters are there. So.
This answer is a little bit shorter than the last one. Rural and quirky.
But a little tiny.
Yeah, so rural and quirky. I think anybody that knows me personally knows I'd probably go on the side of rural and quirky. I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Being that I'm rural and quirky myself, and I'm eclectic at heart, by far going in that direction. And I think it's really going to be a managed growth thing. You know, we can't expand out, but we can definitely build in, and it's how we build in that's really going to define our character. So again, we need to talk about the conversation.
There's a whole room full of people over here, and I'm my back to them, so I'm going to address this part of the room. You guys can
work the room, kid. Work the room.
Talk amongst yourself. Anyway, I'm a candidate that's interested in limited growth, and especially in an area that would be served by the water system. So I think that's very important. The other thing is that I would be respond to any proposals for about affordability and things that would work right. And also, I feel that smaller houses on smaller lots fit in better with the town. And so I would be in favor of setbacks and height restrictions. And I also support the LUHOC, the Land Use Committee, proposal for limited exceptions to the 2.3 acre subdivision size. So that's what I have to say about that. I'll be back.
I think everyone here is on the same page, and it's probably why we all live in this rural and crooky town. But I think this question of developing growth versus offering affordable housing is its own relationship. And I don't think anyone wants a huge influx of people and houses throughout this canyon, but I think people do care deeply about affordable housing, and I think those two are connected to one another.
Okay, Vic, what are your thoughts and proposals and options for enforcing speed limits through town and sustaining that effort? Have you considered a municipal court and a contract with the sheriff's office similar to Lyon? Or do you have ideas that our town can afford besides a welcome sign that will help with our speeding problem?
This has been an issue for as long as I've lived in Jamestown. As part of the rebuild for County Road 94, the town explored many options for traffic calming. Many were not feasible, effective, or in fact desired by citizens. In addition to the welcome signs, we'll have the modified speed hump on the west end, the drainage swale across from the Merc, and after the road is completed, we'll look again at striping a pedestrian crosswalk. In the past, the town has looked at municipal courts and found them unaffordable, and I'm certainly open to seeing what Lyons is doing that is beyond our current intergovernmental agreement with the Sheriff's Office.
First of all, I'm definitely open to suggestions as to how to curtail speed through town, because it is obviously an issue. I'm definitely in favor of more speed bumps. The one thing that I know that I've talked to people about this is that they can be problematic for snowplows in the winter, which is why I was thinking, but it might not be a bad idea to do the plastic speed bumps that are removable, the short humps that you can bolt into the ground on each side. So we could bolt them in for the summertime. We have high traffic times, and then take them out maybe in times of snow and whatnot, so the snowplows don't have to worry about them. And in terms of increased policing, no, we don't need that. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that a traffic court works here. Enforcement just doesn't work for speeding unless it's there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People learn pretty quickly when to slow down and when they can get away with it, and it just makes it worse. Speed bumps are problematic for the people who live near speed bumps. So all places where we want to slow things down, people live there. So you have to be really careful with those. I think on the dirt roads, maybe some of the portable ones are okay, but there are a lot of ways to start to get people to slow down that are not enforcement or bossy based. And we've had some of those conversations. I've had those conversations during my time as roads and bridges person with the people of Main Street and down. And again, 30 seconds, there's no way to do it, but it's really about adding some visual things that can be something that relate to us, not signs, but things that are artsy and more fun, and we can create ourselves, and that give people the impression that this is an area for hanging out and being a community, and not something that's just there to get from point A to point B. That's been shown to be a very effective method in other places, and I think that's something that really would work for us here.
So, you know, a lot of stuff's been said here already. We do have an IGA in place with the Sheriff's Department, so they are in charge of enforcing traffic here. I'm not interested in having a sheriff sitting here at the stop sign monitoring all of our behavior all the time. If there's a problem speeder, you can always report it to the sheriff's department if you need to. Having said that, I ran the farmer's market out here for about 4 years, sold veggies to a bunch of you, and I was probably the first one to kick an unoccupied tricycle out in the middle of the street in front of a speeding car there, just to see what might happen. I hate it. I have young kids. They walk up and down the street, and I don't want to see people speeding through here. We have a number of traffic calming measures scheduled to be implemented, and we'll see how those do. I think one of the most effective might be a digital radar sign just to show people their speed, and that's a possibility. If we can get that going, I think that would be great for the town.
Woo! Ow!
So unless it's changed, that those portable digital speed.
Yeah, I think it's a great asset in the community.
Very aware of speeding issues since we live right on Mill Street and people are ripping by all the time. Number one, I'm going to throw out there some personal ownership. Residents own this, and it's kind of funny. We always mention all the other speeders. I'll tell you a quick story. I used to do a lot of community meetings, like the community picnics you've seen with commissioners, where all of us from different departments go around and answer questions. And we were in one community, and this was a standard question for Sheriff Pelley. And it's like, I'll go ahead and increase patrols here, but I can tell you that 80% of the people we pick up are the residents. We really want that. Yeah. I think the traffic calming measures that we have in place for the new pavement, let's give that a try and just go from there. It doesn't help.
I will just repeat what I said when we originally voted on changing the speed limit out front here from 20 to 15. That speeding is a conscious effort. As all of us driving cars, we are in control of how fast that car goes, and it's up to us whether we want to speed or not. So until you can get into people's minds and get them to understand that they are in control of how fast they go through here, signs, whatever, it doesn't really change anything. So I would like to see ways of tackling that, of like actually getting people, like you were saying, own up to it, like realize they're driving through the middle of downtown Jamestown and maybe they should go 10 miles per hour because they have control over that.
So prior to the flood, I was on the town board and in charge of roads and bridges, and during the flood, I was in charge of roads and bridges for the first 2 years. And this was a constant conversation, and after doing a lot of research with small rural communities, there were significant tests and studies done that these traffic calming ideas of painting the road more narrowly is more effective than not, and putting the flexible beams in the center of the road are more effective than not. But one last point, I know we're all in control of it, but I've done tests and have gone in regular drive from the stop sign or from Ward Street down to the stop sign, and I cannot go any slower than 25 without putting in first.
You ever hear brakes?
Well, I'm just trying to be, you know.
Put your car in first is what.
Yeah, I guess that's the answer,
yeah. Been there, done that. When I was mayor, the board set aside $800 for, not waving that thing already, are you? Okay. Set aside $800 for traffic control, and we contracted with the sheriff's department to put in some overtime so they could sit there. And they gave out some tickets, but a lot of the tickets also went to residents, and it wasn't a very popular thing. So I wouldn't do that. But what I would say is that that can't compare us to a place like Lyons or Maryland, who has they have a lot of commercial businesses, and they collect a lot of sales tax. We don't have a sales tax. So everything that we get would be coming from the property taxes, and we just can't support it with this.
Okay, Joe. Do you have ideas, or what will you do to help with our town being safer and more resilient in the future during events like floods and fires? Especially for seniors and physically challenged residents, how can we help during times of blocked roads and loss of phone and electricity?
Well, one of the things we obviously need to do is we definitely need to focus on mitigation, especially on the outskirts of town. But it is one of those things too where a lot of people that live, you have like my house backs up to the hillside over here. There's a lot of stuff that can be mitigated there. Wouldn't mind talking to the Jamestown Volunteer Fire Department, Left Hand and stuff like that, to see if we can get community mitigation days together, where we have actual time set aside for volunteer firefighters and whatnot to come in and help clear things out. We could do that obviously on a town property level, like national forest land level and stuff. But I think it'd really help if we did it for individual residents on personal property as well. Thank you.
As far as response during a disaster, making sure that everyone's taken care of. One thing I was surprised to hear a lot of from people after the flood during the long-term recovery process was that people felt like there was a ton of information, but it was coming from too many different places and it wasn't all the same, and that made it really hard for people to know what was going on and what they should do. So one thing we can pretty easily do is, and technologically it's a really easy fix, is make sure all of our communications, whether it's from the website, going to the QT, going to emails, if we ever do social media, that it's all saying the same thing at the same time. We can automate that really easily. So that's one way to just make the communications clearer to people. And then the other thing is to really take advantage of groups like the Aging in Place group and making sure that we have made sure that we have a really clear way for not just our local government to know who needs help, but for the neighbors around any kind of population that might need it, that we're sure we have a mechanism in place as neighborhoods to take care of those people in disaster. And I think it's a really doable thing, and we do have some groups already, primed and ready to go that can help us do that.
So as far as increasing safety for our community, just going to throw some things out there. Looking for funding for the storm water management plan, I think is pretty huge. I think in future water events, landslides are going to actually be a significant problem, and that's, they've caused a problem in the past. We are going to be somewhat reliant on outside rescue agencies, but there are ways for us to, as a community, increase our self-reliance. There's this idea of a pod program that's been thrown around, and be interested in supporting that. People want to talk about that more. But again, it comes through community self-reliance, and the way that happens is through increasing our community engagement. I just want to continue to encourage us all to communicate with each other and build relationships.
I'd agree that communication is key in any natural disaster. We really need to beef up our communication. What you see with like the ham radio networks that have been established up along the Front Range, that's a great tool. Education is the other component of that, letting people know what comes. We live in a very hazardous environment here, not only floods but the wildland fire. So getting some increasing community knowledge on that and moving forward. As far as those folks at risk, on the Jamestown Volunteer Fire Department, there's actually a sign up for those folks at risk, and having information on people that may not be able to assist themselves during evacuation or another type similar event. That's key in being able to identify those individuals.
Well, I think it's been stated here. A lot of things are already available. We have a slash pile for people to bring stuff. Maybe we need to figure out a way for community members to help other community members to bring slash down. A lot of this, once again, the way this question was phrased really is interesting to me. How you going to do this, and really, this is how are we going to do this? You know, how are we as a community going to make our community safer? And what information do you have to give to us so that as a board, we can make those resources available to you?
Actually, before the flood, we had a citizen-led approach to develop neighborhood clusters. And it was moving along, and then something happened called the flood. But right now, there is a revived group working on that. Exact same neighborhood cluster, neighbors helping neighbors. I think that we have to have some more communication throughout the community about that. And I would sort of echo what Chad said. This isn't something that the board or JVFD does for us. This is something we have to be doing as a community for ourselves. And talk to Nancy Everstein.
We're altering. Our turn again.
Okay, I have another list. I'm going to go through as quickly as I can. I did already mention the importance of a demographically inclusive committee to address social issues, which include all different types of residents. But also, I would increase the focus on the town website for emergency preparedness, update our emergency preparedness plans, work closely with groups like the IMA and Local Strong, develop an approved comprehensive town emergency communications plan, encourage and support the formation of the neighborhood emergency teams, and develop, again, the JF Volunteer Fire Department Capital Improvement Fund to replace equipment on time.
So you've heard from most of us now on this topic, and I agree, and I think it's obvious that things have been started, and maybe the issue is that nothing has been set in stone yet. We haven't come up with the plan, we haven't come up with those clusters, and I think that's where we should move forward in the next couple of years, at least this term.
We're already about 45 minutes over our schedule, so we're going to move to the last question, then we're going to move to just the mayor questions. And if your question wasn't answered or asked yet, then we can still do it at the end. And I think these guys will stick around for a few personal questions as well.
Maybe hold the applause for the end, that's taking up time.
Yeah. So we'll just go to the last question. Well, there's only one.
Okay, prior to the mayor question. Last question. Jamestown is a unique community because we have many different types of residents who all get along for the most part. Sometimes conflict has arisen in the past when more conservative town members have taken issue with a more freewheeling crowd. What is your opinion in protecting the wild mountain character that many residents value?
Generally for protecting that. One of the reasons is, one of the things that happened that I think was amazing during that long-term recovery planning process is a huge proportion of this town showed up for that and came up with these guiding principles that are just real basic things that we want to guide us, and keeping that character is one of those. And so my approach to policy is anything we're going to do, we have to run it through those principles first and see how it meshes up with them. So definitely, you know, promoting the wild, or allowing the wild mountain character. At the same time, we have to be considerate and find people who maybe don't want to hear loud parties all the time. I think what's been really amazing and effective about this community is that conflict has always existed, and we've managed to solve it amongst ourselves without excessive governmental interference, so I'm really hoping we can continue that.
What was that? Wild Mountain Spirit? Wild Mountain?
Wild mountain character.
freewheeling wild mountain character. I think a huge part of that freewheeling wild mountain character that we all appreciate here is self-reliance, right? So we take care of ourselves, and we take care of the people around us. And that comes through that spirit of community engagement, like I keep talking about that community engagement, keep talking about community engagement through interpersonal relationships. And again, we've got a lot of different people, from a lot of different places, and a lot of different times in history. And all those people coming together and sharing information is what's going to keep the spirit that we have right now alive in this community. And that's what I want to see happen here in Jamestown.
Can't we all just get along? I cannot think of one small I cannot think of one small quirky mountain town that I've ever been exposed to or spent time in that doesn't have those factions, if you want to call it this. And to me, that's actually what makes it the quirky mountain character town, right? You have all kinds of characters. And to me, the biggest common thing that makes all that work is respect. At the human level, we all have respect for one another. You turn down the music, I won't scream at you, get off my lawn. And I don't know that I would want to change that, because that's really what makes us us. So it's all human, just get along.
I think that's very well put. It really comes down to respect, and I think for the most part, everybody has a certain level of compassion and a certain amount of respect for everybody. And I've yet to ever encounter a situation that couldn't be solved through some kind of mutual agreement on setting boundaries. So just get along. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Keep running the things like that, right? I'll have YouTube.
So this question provides a solid answer. By and large, Jamestown residents have negotiated value differences, and as long as there continues to be openness to others' points of view, we can negotiate rough spots without board intervention. In general, once the government gets involved in these situations, it only complicates things.
I kind of don't really have a whole lot to add that everybody else hasn't already said here, but one thing that I've kind of realized is that I try to tell myself this every day, at any point in time, the person that's standing directly across from you has more in common with you than they don't. So there's always common ground. And no matter how much of a difference of opinion you have, you will always have common ground somewhere along the line regarding some certain topic. And all you need to do is build that. Work on it, build that. And I think you can overcome any sort of issue. Even if you have political, ideological differences, you just have to sit down and be willing to listen to people talk. And I can do that.
So I just want to say ditto to everyone's
I always thought that people came up here for just two reasons. One is for the peace and quiet, and the other half of the people come up to make as much noise as they want to. So I knew I was going to have the problem. However, I think that one of the definitions of a mountain town is that we have less regulation, less law, than you would find in Boulder or other cities or other places in the county. And I think that's a good thing, because there's a lot more independence and a lot more freedom than we would have otherwise. I could also say that, I guess I'm done saying it. I'd also say that less government doesn't mean no government. We still need things to keep us safe. But I think that's one of the definitions of mountain character.
That's it.
Okay, that is the end of the questions for the people vying for the positions. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
We have 5 minute break to use the restroom.
So,
Nobody mentioned what?
So we're going to take 5 minutes just to use the restroom, and then we're going to come back, and the mayors are going to answer, our mayor candidates will be answering questions.
I'm going to squeeze
Go get a nap and wipe that up a little bit.
Let's get someone to. Does anybody know anybody got any good dirty jokes?
Over here, it's like this. I spilled some.
6 mayor questions. The first 5 people who want to come behind Randy and ask a question to the candidates can. After that, we'll just have an informal ask your neighbor questions situation.
Okay, Julie, you go first. The very first question is, why do you want to be mayor?
Okay, are we still on the 30-second? Where's the microphone? Okay.
Yes, we'll back.
Sure. 45 Okay. First of all, I'm totally invested in this community. I've decided to live here and raise children, and I really innately do want the best thing for this community's outcome. But I also see a time where I am in the time of my life where my kids are both going to be at school. I have time to give, and I'm a great facilitator. I'm a great listener. I'm not judgmental, and I really see this as an opportunity to give thanks and honor to all of you who've been running this town for decades, and be able to pass the torch down and let us learn from you so that we can start working together as a team and continue running this community as the great town of Jamestown that it is.
Yogi once said, if you don't have a plan about where you're going, you're probably going to wind up someplace else. And so I think that I have a plan. I've been on the board for a long time, before the flood, during the flood, not during the flood, but after the flood. And I've seen a lot of this before. I think that I have been able to train myself, take advantage of being on the board or as of the mayor, that in order to have some kind of regulatory plan or be able to present a better picture. I was the mayor during the fire. I was the mayor who did a lot of the projects around the town. And I think that I can do the same job or a better job the second time.
Okay, Ken, along the same, when would you make decisions on your own as mayor versus when would you involve the board in the decision making?
Well, Jamestown has what they call the weak mayor system, which means the mayor does not have a vote. The board is the primary group that makes laws and adopts regulations and approves things. And so it's important that the mayor and the board work together in order to make things work properly. Having said that, in Jamestown, because we are small, we don't have a staff. So normally, if you were lived in a larger place, the people who are on the board or the mayor would be talking to the administrative personnel, which would be like a town manager or a town administrator. What we do in Jamestown, as a matter of need, in order to get work done, is that the board members take the job of actually being a department head for water, parks, and so forth. And the mayor takes the job or some of the responsibilities for what the administrative manager would do, the town manager.
So I agree with what Ken said. You may all know that the mayor's only vote in a tie-breaking situation. But as far as when will you involve the board in decision making, I perceive this job as a facilitator. I'm there to make sure things are run efficiently, to make sure that people are doing their jobs and representing this community. I don't have any ego to say that I'm going to be the one making the decisions and running this town and blah, blah, blah. I am here to help facilitate success for this community and everyone on the board to be able to do their jobs to the best of their ability.
Okay, Julie, what will you do to ensure transparency in government and make sure collaborative decision-making with the board happens?
I chuckle at this because I think transparency, I don't know why that's in question, but I can tell you that I do have ideas to inform people in a more timely fashion before the meetings. I want the community participation. So if you're uninformed or uneducated about what's happening, then we haven't done our jobs. So for me, transparency is, without saying, part of our job. And I'm not sure what to do to ensure that. But the collaborative decision making with the board, again, I'm perceiving this as that's the nature of this job.
I have some things I would do to improve transparency. I would restore the quarterly newsletter. I would make sure that emailed meeting notices and links to important town items to the town mailing list. I would post the agendas a little bit earlier. I would develop an addendum to go with the agenda that would explain what the items are about that are on the agenda. I would improve the town's website to optimize use, and I would use online resources to disseminate information and to get the surveys, to gather opinions from the residents. I would post transcribed town meeting minutes on the town website immediately, and I would ensure that all meetings are posted, open to the public, and that executive sessions are used only when absolutely necessary.
Okay, Jim, how well do you think that you know the town people and their issues?
Well, as I said earlier, I would still use surveys to the community to get feedback and try to get that feedback as often as possible. I know that things change, so things that maybe were important to the community 10 or 20 years ago may be less important today, and maybe some other things that are more important. So I'd be willing to make that adjustment. And I also, as a retiree, I'm here almost all the time, and I would be available. Merc is a good place for coffee, and I would be available to anybody who wanted to talk to me. I believe in inclusion. Everybody should have a chance, and everybody's opinions are valued.
How well do I think I know townspeople and their issues? I think that I know almost all of you and some of your issues. And I think you know me and know that I have issues. But in all seriousness, I'm a social person. So you've seen me out. I've volunteered for 4th of July. I volunteered to help Rainbow here at the Merc. I volunteer in the town hall. I'm up at the school. I think I'm pretty in tune with what's going around town, and if there's something that needs to be brought to my attention, I think I'm a pretty approachable person who I'd like to talk and get to know people, and I'm a problem solver. That's I enjoy doing that.
Julie, character of Jamestown has changed over the years. How do you feel about the change?
So Ken and I were talking, like these last two questions, you know, I think we already answered this, but you know, the character of Jamestown's changed over what years? Like 100 years ago, 40 years ago, 12 years ago since I moved in. I mean, it's changed. That's inevitable. How do I feel about it? I think I'm, there are things that I like and things that I wish could be changed to make better. Like, for instance, I have an idea of starting a wellness program monthly with different people and really bringing together people for different, in different areas, whether it's cooking or, including Vic's Tai Chi class and sewing and herbal apothecary and whatnot. So, yeah. Sorry.
At least over the last 28 years, I feel like the biggest change came with the flood, and we need to take care of that infrastructure. But also, compared to 1992, when I first went on the board, we're much better off fiscally than we were. So that's another thing that's an important change, because there was a time when the only time we got money was through having potlucks and things like that. And I also feel that we can make an investment in ourselves for the community. And talk about history, please vote on April 3rd. But April 3rd is also the 135th birthday of the town of Jamestown. So you can celebrate by making sure that your ballot is in.
Ken, as mayor, you will likely represent Jamestown to the press and media. Are you comfortable speaking publicly and representing your community?
I guess we both are, so we'll call that one a tie.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think we're both comfortable speaking publicly, representing this community. And I'm just really grateful and thankful that you're all here, and we have this opportunity. Ken and I are from Cleveland.
Both East Siders, too.
That's right.
Okay, that's the last of the formal questions. If anyone has questions for these two, please come up or raise your hand.
I got one. Nobody has mentioned the bears. That's a major deal here in Jamestown.
It is a big deal here in Jamestown. What do you think? What do you think about the way it's been handled? Thanks to Michelle and others.
Yeah, I think that we made great strides with Michelle Durant and the bear tracker. I feel like it's going to be a continuous problem, because as the front range grows, the habitat for the bear gets more and more difficult. And I know that there's a lot of sentimentality, a lot of people who like the bears maybe better than the people. As long as, but I think the most important thing is to make sure that we keep people safe.
I was just being counted.
But the most important thing would be to keep people safe. And we want to keep the bears safe too.
Any other questions for the people?
And are there... They're forever. Well, I thought he was talking about the Chicago Bears. But are there other questions for the board members too? Because we can pull them up, or I didn't know if we were. It's for everybody.
Sorry, I guess we didn't think of the structure of this that well. I don't know if anyone on the board or running for mayor wants to have any closing remarks, or if anyone in the room wants to stand up and ask anything. If not, we can just stop and hang out.
Closing remarks.
Hang out.
Well, there was a lot of things that we didn't talk about besides the bears. There was an important question about what we might owe on the advances that didn't get asked, and how they might affect our taxes and things like that. So I have an opinion about that. If somebody wants to ask me offline about that, I'd be more than happy to provide them with information about that or anything else. But I do appreciate. I have been privileged to be able to represent Jamestown at the IMA meetings. I represent Jamestown at the Left-Hand Water Oversight Group as a director, and I represent Jamestown with the Colorado Municipal League, in particular the Policy Committee, and I've had the privilege of being able to be a member of this community for the past 28 years, and I feel like this is another opportunity for me to take another step up, and I appreciate everything that the fact that you guys care enough to come and be with us tonight and ask the questions and make sure that we're on our toes, because whoever gets elected, we're going to be owing to you, and we're going to be responsive to you.
I don't have anything prepared, like a song or anything. No, sorry.
Can you do like summer song?
But I do appreciate this opportunity. I want you to know that whichever way this turns out, I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be able to present myself and give you guys an opportunity to have a vote. I want to say thanks to Ken, because through all of this, I think we have a great relationship and are playful with each other and have fun with each other, and when we interrupt each other, it's fine because we all know where we come from. But this has been a lot of fun, and either way, I think we're moving forward in the right direction, and I'm really excited for the future of this community.
Unless anybody else have anything else out there, the only comment I would have.
Thank you, guys.
Would be thank you to our new people. And thank you to outgoing Mayor Tara for all of her work involved in the flood. Okay, hold on 1 second, folks. There's one more item here. In these times right now, when there's so much noise going on, things long overdue, like the Time's Up movement, the Me Too movement, things that should have happened a long time ago. Along those lines are something that's been bothering me for quite a while. There wants to be female equality in all things, but I still have yet to see online, on the internet, YouTube, anywhere, some young woman stepping up, attempting to match the male intelligence and step up to the Tide Pod Challenge. Good night. If you don't know what it is, you need to find out. Thank you all. Good night.
All right. Up until